Gunners supporters blows his whistle. George Moncur steps up and scores! Bottom corner of the net. The goalkeeper was very close, and it's George. He lets in a low cross, and a spin turn in, and Leyton Orient just back on level terms. He'll come to James. He shoots. Oh, and a goal from Tom James. That was a volley, and that was. It's a low cross. It's an inviting cross, and it's been turned in by Theo Archibald, and he celebrates in front of the travelling faithful.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the E10 studio here in Leyton for today's game. We'll be watching Hartlepool United take on the Mighty O's. But before I introduce today's guests, let's go live up at Hartlepool, where we've got Richie Wellens talking to Oliver Buck.
Cheers, Glenn. I'm delighted to be joined in now by Richie Wellens. And Richie, it's a big one today, but back to the ground where you managed your first game for the O's, and it was only a point we had there, but after the game you said about how you expected the following season for there to be a much better atmosphere, and I mean, you must be quite happy with that prophecy coming true.
Yeah, it's been, sometimes you look at it, it's been a really, really long year, and then other times you look at it, it's gone pretty quickly. So I think the progress we've made since that day has been vast, been quicker than what I expected. But everybody at the club, from the board all the way down to the players and the staff, have to take a large amount of credit from that, and along with that the supporters who have obviously bought into what we're trying to do, and have come along that journey with us.
And looking at this season then, 10 games to go, every game starting to get bigger and bigger. It's still a long way to go though.
No, there's a long way to go, and I've been to a couple of games this week, you know, and you can see, I watched Bradford v Carlisle, and you can see that teams get a little bit nervy, and it's difficult to get over the line at this stage. Even, you know, I always look at the Premier League. The Premier League is the elite of the elite. Manchester City has spent the biggest budget, but they've probably relied on, you know, the Aguero one, where it's the last kick of the game for the last game of the season. Man United have done it numerous times where you've had to win the last day of the season. So I think the majority of leagues usually go to the wire. You've obviously got Burnley in the Championship that are streaking ahead. League One has now closed up a little bit, so there's 4 teams involved in that. You know, and there's probably 4 teams that are chasing 3 spots in our league.
And focusing on today's game then, the opposition, they haven't won too many recently, but they haven't lost too many either, and they've scored a lot of goals against some good opposition. It's not going to be a walk in the park, it never is.
No, I watched their game against Bradford, and John Askey's brought a little bit of a stability about him. They actually play some good football, they're pretty open, so they can concede goals, but they look a threat. Obviously, the old supporters know what Dan Kemp, he's brought a lot of talent, and along with Cook in terms of their midfield. So they've got some good players, but no, I want us to get back out. We made a mistake in the last 5 minutes against a Culture that was cost us 2 points, so we want them 2 points back.
And looking at the Orient side, and 2 notable ones, starting with Ed Turns, he's starting again today. Some fans thought he might not, but he's in the starting 11. Yeah,
we had a game in a week, and we just didn't think that McCart he's quite ready to start. He's obviously been out for a significant amount of time. Jordan Brown come in, obviously, in terms of Tom James being out, has enforced us into that change. So it was a toss-up between Jordan and Rob Hunt, but Jordan is a lot more ahead in terms of his fitness than Rob. And obviously we asked permission off Wales, and Wales are great and allowed us to play it.
And did you say Jordan Brown also returning? It must be great to have a player with his versatility returning to the side for the run.
It is. We would have liked another game under his belt, but obviously with Tom James' injury, and we've got a couple of other little niggles, we've had to enforce him. But he gives us good quality. He's a good player, and can defend well. He's good in the air, but obviously he gives us that control with the ball as well.
Well, Richie, best luck for today.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ollie and Richie up there in Hartlepool. As mentioned, I am Glenn Wilkie. For those who don't know, and joining me in the studio today is journalist Brendan the Knowledge Pitcher, and a key member of the Orient team who last got promoted, Super Joe Widdowson. Welcome, chaps. How are we doing today?
Yeah, all good, Glenn.
Yeah.
Doing well on your debut?
On my debut, yes. It is my debut today, presenting the show. And we were talking...
Another anniversary, is it?
It is an anniversary, yes. It was 28 years ago today I made my Leyton Orient debut here at Brisbane Road, and we won that day. So hopefully that's a good omen going into today's game. So welcome, guys. After last week's sort of disappointing results, where we're looking ahead, we want to get back to sort of winning ways. We've not had a win for a while now. What do you think? What do you think, Joe, coming to you, what do you think's been going on in training this week? What's been the message getting across, which has been getting across to the players?
Yeah, I think it would have probably just been a case of, you know, refocusing the minds, you know, getting, you know, the disappointment of obviously the 2 late goals last week out of the boys' system. I'm sure there would have been like a real good week on the training ground, you know, trying to not necessarily lift morale, but, you know, just kind of re-energise the boys again. And, you know, like you said there, it's the final 10 games now. You know, so much to play for. There's so much at stake, and that will no doubt be creeping into the minds of the players. You know, there's so much on the line. You know, they've worked all season to get to this point, and you know what they're desperate to achieve is sort of, you know, within distance now. So it's just a case of trying to be relaxed. I think, you know, trying to be obviously there's so much at stake, but be relaxed, try and enjoy the occasion, enjoy the pressure, because you know they've earned the right to, you know, they're sitting top of the pile, and you know everything's in their hands still. So yeah, I think, you know, it'll just be a case of, you know, forget about last week, it's gone. You know, obviously 2 drop points, but as Richie said there, you know, they'll be desperate to get them back this weekend up at Hartlepool.
So Richie, after the game last week, came out and he was very open and honest about the way we played and players not performing and body language and stuff like that. We're going to come on to the team news very, very shortly, but there's been one change, or whether that's a forced change, I think it is, with an injury. But do you think the starting lineup, the 11 players or the other 10 players who are starting today, are lucky to keep their place?
I wouldn't say lucky. I think this is the majority of the team out there today that are starting are the team that have got us into this position. They've earned that right to do so. I think it's a very strong bench, and I think Richie will have the options there if they don't. It's basically a second chance. If you don't perform for these first 50, 60 minutes today, then there's great options to have on the bench. So yeah, I think it's a strong team, and it's a strong full 18 today with the subs bench as well.
Brilliant. Right, let's go on to today's team news. We'll get the graphic up now, and we'll run through that. Like we say, there's only one change to the starting 11. We will start obviously with in goal today, number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. Then we move on to number 7, Paul Smith. Number 10, Ruel Sartoriu. Number 12, Jordan Brown. Number 14, George Moncur. Number 15, Idris El Mizouni. Number 16, Aaron Drinan. Number 18, and your captain today is Darren Pratley. Number 19, Omar Beckles. Number 24, Jaden Sweeney, and number 43, Ed Turns. And on the bench today, we've got Reece Byrne, substitute goalkeeper, Adam Thompson, Jamie McCart, Rob Hunt, Craig Clay, Kieran Sadlier, and Charlie Kelman. So, Brendan, coming to you with that starting lineup, do you think the shape of the team will be the same as last week? Because last week there were slight changes to the way we set up. Do you think we'll go like we did before, like last Saturday, or do you think we'll revert back to how we've played the majority of the season?
I think it is that kind of 4-2-3-1 today, and I think Richie changed that 3 at the back midway through the second half last weekend, and it didn't really pay off. I think you saw that it kind of, it's difficult because Richie's such a good coach, and he's drilled such a kind of a formation into them, and they all know their roles exactly. And I think the problem maybe might have been last Saturday was the fact you changed to a 3 at the back, and suddenly it's all a little bit muddled, and you're trying to be conservative and hold on to a lead, and that kind of didn't really work in the end. So I think you go back to what you know today in terms of the 4-2-3-1. I think you'll have learnt from perhaps the mistake in changing the formation. And these players, they've all played in these roles before. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Jordan Brown is playing at right back, and before the start of the season that might have been a little bit out of the ordinary, but he's played there multiple times this season. He's never let us down before.
Joe, going on to last week, we're obviously 2-0 up, 5 minutes to go. We've changed shape, we've changed the system. Do you think we were being a bit negative in just trying to hold on to the lead, or do you think that's not really in our makeup? We've got one of the best defence in the league. Do you think like our best form of defence is attack? Do you think we should have gone for that third goal, or what was your thoughts on last week's game?
I think if you look over the course of the season, we've actually seen games out from winning positions really, really well. So, you know, from that point of view, it was a surprise to concede those last 2-minute goals. I don't think there would have been any sort of instruction or message from Richie to, you know, kind of shut up shop and, you know, try and be deliberately defensive or sit back in. But, you know, I just feel it's like it's that mental side of it. You know, when you've got a 2-0 lead, when the game's coming towards those latter stages and you're seeing it out, you just think like, especially the position that the boys are in at the moment, you know, let's just get ourselves over the line. Let's just get, you know what I mean? Let's just get that final whistle done, get it out of the way. And sometimes, you know, I think, you know, like I said, in most cases this season, the boys have done that really well. Their game management's been really good. Just last Saturday, probably for the first time this season, it hasn't quite happened. You know, they've conceded the first goal. not managed to regroup and reorganise in time, and then been hit with a sucker blow right at the end. And everyone's come away like really disappointed because we're not used to seeing that from Orient. We're used to seeing games like really strongly, and more often than not, us being the team on the offensive in the latter stages. So yeah, disappointing. But again, I don't think there was a particular message to try and be defensive. I think it's probably just like a mental side where the boys, they know they're so close, they've got themselves into a 2-0 lead after not playing particularly great, not been at their best. And obviously Colchester have come on strong, and you've got to give them credit for finding a way back into the game, because not many teams come here and score 2 goals.
No, and we didn't expect them to score 2 looking at the game last week for the first 85 minutes. So, yeah, it was disappointing. Colchester obviously scrapping for their lives near the bottom of the table. Hartlepool again today are second bottom, and they're really in a dogfight down there. What do you expect from the opposition today? How do you find the game? Because we've got our boys who want to bounce back from that disappointment last Saturday, so they're going to be fired up. You've also got Hartlepool, who have not lost in 5, 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is. I know you know what it is, Brendan. You'll tell us. How do you see today's game playing out?
Yeah, I think it's one that suits us in terms of, I think the onus is on Hartlepool a lot more than us. I think obviously we need to win. It's a must-win for us to kind of bounce back. But Hartlepool only need to win at this point. They're in the relegation battle. They're behind Crawley. Crawley have played less games than them. So really, they've had a lot of draws recently, Hartlepool, since John Askey came in. I think it's 4 in a row now in his first 4 games. But that's no good to them at this point. They need to start winning games if they're gonna survive. And they've really been playing like that. Really, it's been quite open stuff. A lot of games with a lot of goals in, and I think that suits our game. I don't think we particularly like it when teams sit in and go 10 behind the ball and try and frustrate us. I think if you make it a football game and it's an open game where we can go end to end, I think we can beat any team in this division quite comfortably. So I think we saw in the reverse fixture it was kind of similar. It was a 5-2 game at Brisbane Road. So yeah, I think it suits us today, Hartlepool.
I was going to say that to you, Joe. Like, if Hartlepool have got to win, really, aren't they? Because of the position they're in. So you would expect them at home to be sort of attacking on the front foot, coming at us, which would suit us. So how do you envisage? Obviously, Aaron Drynan's kept his place up front. He's not scored for a bit, but he works really, really hard. Where do you see the key for us, our success today, in getting the goals we need?
Well, I feel like, like we've touched on there, Hartlepool, they are playing an open, expansive kind of brand at football at the moment. They need goals. So, having played up at Hartlepool like loads of times, it's always a tough game. The fans there, they really kind of, like to put pressure on you as an opposition player. And they really do get behind their team. So, they'll be driving them forward. But I think if we can kind of gain control in the middle of the pitch, I think that'll be a key area for us. There will be gaps. There will be plenty of areas to exploit Hartlepool. And if we can manage to get our passing game going, be dominant in possession and kind of starve them of the ball, get them chasing around, because no doubt they'll come out on the front foot, aggressive, pressing, plenty of energy. But I think it's important for us to try and, as much as we can, show that composure, just to take the sting out of the game, because they'll want it. I think they'll want it kind of chaotic and frantic, and it's important for us to just be calm, be composed in possession, but make good decisions. If it needs to, if in the early stage of the game the ball needs to be spun in behind and we play in there after 10 minutes, then we do that. It'll be about managing the game, but like Brendan said, football-wise, we can kind of dominate any team toe-to-toe in this division. So I think if Hartlepool do come out and want to play on the front foot and be attacking and expansive, then there's definitely areas for Orient to kind of take advantage of there.
And with what you've said there about keeping hold of the ball and sort of playing really well, how key will George Moncur in that number 10 position be? It's really important he has a good game today, because he will make us tick and he can create stuff. So how important will he be, like, to fit into that sort of way that you expect us to play? Yeah,
really important, because like I said, I feel like the central midfield area will be a key area of the pitch, where we can really gain control and get on the ball and try and dominate. And George Moncur, he pops up in those positions and he knits the midfield and front line really well. So it'll be important to try and get him on the ball. He'll also be that extra body in there to try and dominate possession. So it'll be important that he's heavily involved, and then like you said, going forward, we'll be looking to him to be the one that's trying to create and supply the front line and hopefully score some goals.
Looking at, we've spoken about the midfield, looking at the forwards, obviously we've got Dryan and Paul Smith and Ruel Sartoriu. Do you want to talk us through Ruel, his form of the last 3-4 games since he's been in, because his form has really changed and he's had a real positive impact on our team?
Yeah, I think he's one of those players that needs a run, probably needs to feel that he's going to start every week and get going. I think it might be part of kind of a fitness thing in terms of just needs a run of 90 minutes to keep going strong. And I think he's getting that now in this team. I think he started the last 5 or 6 games and it's coming now. Look, 4 goal contributions in his previous 5. We all know how good he is in and around the box. He's a great finisher, but again, it's really pleasing to see some of these in terms of he's getting assists as well. He's creating and linking up the play, and it's a big ask because he's playing out on that right-hand side, and Theo Archibald has done such an amazing job out there so far this season. But with him out with injury, you're stepping into big shoes. But he's done really well recently. Took his goal really well last week. Like we said, is creating the play well, and I think he's proven kind of the promise that he had at the back end of last season. I think at the back end of last season, everyone thought this is his time. He'll kick on and he'll be a real asset for us. He had a bit of a slow start, but now he seems to be getting into gear.
Joe, you've played with Ruel, you've trained with him daily, you know the guy better than us two. What do you think is his driver? What is key? Because he has dipped in form throughout the season, whether he's getting a starting sort of position in the team or he comes off the bench. He always seems to have a point in the season where something just clicks and you see the drive and the energy in him and his goals and his assists kick on. What do you put that down to?
Firstly, I'm a massive fan of Ruel. You know, I've seen him come through the youth team, break into the first team, and I've always loved his confidence, his self-belief. You know, he's fearless. You know, he's not afraid to assume responsibility, and you know, nothing seems to faze him. I think in this team he offers something different in terms of his directness. He carries the ball really well. He's got that power and that ability to dribble and almost run through defenders at times. And sort of, you know, he's always had a knack of being able to create things sort of out of nothing where you think there's nothing on. So, you know, I think he's a really talented boy. You know, we've all seen, you know, so far in his Orient career, he goes through tends to have these purple patches of form, doesn't he? Where, you know, he'll just look unplayable for a few weeks and then he'll kind of go off the boil a little bit and maybe fall out of the team. So I think, you know, we've got to remember he's still a young player, he's still maturing and developing. But, you know, I think from what I hear and having spoken to him earlier this season, you know, Richie's really got him fit. He's worked with him on his game. He's talked him through things. He's shown him things, you know, in analysis and stuff that he wants him to do better. So I feel like this season's been a real learning curve for him in terms of understanding his role in the team, and probably as a forward player, the things that he needs to do better to play in a Richie Wellens team. And I feel like the last few weeks he's really kind of come on in terms of his maturity and in terms of knowing his role within the team. You know, Richie demands you know, that defensive work rate and out of possession, that intensity to close down, which Ruel's capable of, but I don't think he's done as well as he is doing at the moment. And I think also Richie, from what he's a great man manager, and he gives players the confidence, especially attacking boys, to go out and express themselves. And I think now you're seeing a Ruel that's in form, that's finding ways to influence the game better. He's making better decisions in terms of when to release the ball, when to dribble, when to drive, when to get his shots off. So yeah, you know, I'm pleased to see him in this good form. I think for him now, the next stage is just improving that consistency with his performance. So you know, he doesn't get known as, oh, you know, Ruel, he'll turn it on for 5 games and score a few goals and then he'll go missing. You know, it's about like keeping those levels of consistency throughout the course of a season and trying to, you know, I guess the objective now is to keep himself in the team.
Brilliant. Before we carry on with our sort of analysis of today's game, I just want to remind everyone viewing on YouTube at home that you can purchase today's game match pass on the Leyton Orient website, and it's come up on your screen there. So you can purchase that for £10, and you can watch the game wherever you are in the world, including the UK. So head over there and pay your money. Brendan, coming to you, we've spoken about Hartlepool briefly there. Where they're struggling, they're down there. But like you say, they've not lost in 4 or 5 games or maybe more. But they haven't won. They keep, they're like the draw specialists. How do you see today? Do you think they'll be happy with a draw? Or you've mentioned that they need a win, but how do you see them setting up? Or where do you see their dangers are to Leyton Orient?
I think like you say, I think like we said before, they need to win. I think if you look at their formation today, I think me and you have had arguments about this before, whether it's a 3 or a 5 at the back. I think it's going to be a 3 with wing backs. I think in terms of their attacking threat, it's quite good. As we've seen in recent weeks, they've scored a lot of goals. I look through their team. I look at Jamie Sterry as a right wing back, is a very good player. And then that front 3 in terms of Dan Kemp, who we're going to highlight in a minute, Connor Jennings, who's a really good striker at the level, played for Stockport last season and helped them to win the National League. And then Josh Umera, who is one of the top scorers in the league this season with 11 goals. So for a struggling side, he's done really well. So they have got that attacking threat, and that's where we're going to be wary, because I think they're going to be open. And they're going to bring the game to us, but it's just about making sure, like Joey said, really, we've got to keep it controlled and impose our game and not let it become a kind of basketball match.
Yeah, good. So with that, let's have a look at the Hartlepool lineup today, and some of the names will certainly be in there in that starting lineup. Well, if not, you've just wasted your breath, Brendan. So as we can, here it comes. It's coming up on the screen now. So in goal, 41, Lecek. Number 2, Sterry, 37, Dodds, 5, Murray, 15, Pruti, 3, Ferguson, 20, Sala, and it's not the Sala we all know, 40, Kemp, 10, Cook, 36, Jennings, and number 9, Umara. So, Brendan, is there any changes in there, any surprises you see?
It's an unchanged lineup from their draw at Bradford last weekend, which was a good result. I think they were leading up until the final stages and could see the late equaliser. So I think they're fighting for their manager. I think John Askey's come in, like we said, 4 draws and they've showed a bit of fight and a bit of grit. But like we say, they've got to turn it into wins now, and that's where we can exploit it, because in front of their expectant home crowd, there's going to be a bit of pressure on them to kind of take the game to us. Yeah.
Joey, we mentioned in the opening, my opening bit, about you were in the last Orient team to get promoted. You know what this running's like. Last sort of 10 games. Looking back to when you were playing and we got promotion, there was a few sort of the table was sort of turning, and Salford were chasing us. It kept changing. Yeah. How do you stay focused, or what is that special mindset that really pushes you and gets you over the line to get you to where you want to be?
I think for us, we were desperate to get promoted. Like Justin came in and he made no secret of the fact that the season he came in, it was stabilising, because we were doing really poorly, and it was just a case of sort of building a bit of confidence and momentum. And then from the beginning of that season, he said, from the next season, he said, right, promotion is the aim. That was it. And obviously in that league, in the National League, only one team goes up, so there was no talk of playoffs. It had to be top spot. So, to be honest, I think we put ourselves under a huge amount of pressure. But like Justin just guided us magnificently. He gave us that self-belief, which I've got no doubts Richie will be doing to the boys as well. He made us feel like we were good enough. He made us feel like that we were more than capable of achieving it. And then for us, I feel like just as a group, we were so driven. We all knew the objective. At this stage of the season, I remember, they call it squeaky bum time. You do start to feel the nerves, because you want it so bad, and you know how hard you've worked over the course of a season. So, but it is just literally a case of, taking each game. I know it's a cliche, but it's just one game at a time, and it's just doing the same things that you've done all season. There doesn't got to be anything different. It's literally approaching each game with the same attitude and the same mentality as the previous games, and just trying not to let the occasion and what is at stake kind of get the better of you. Do you know what I mean? It's just remaining focused, doing your job, and hoping that's enough.
It's interesting you say that about the pressure and the nerves and everything else, because as you know, all players are different. Some thrive on that. They have to be on the edge. They have to have that pressure for them to perform, whereas others don't like it, and they go within themselves, and there's a fear of failure, and I can't do that, or I can't do this. I need to just keep the ball simple. Whereas they're not playing as freely as they would have, like you say, earlier in the season doing that. Was there players like that in the team, in the squad back then? And did it affect the sort of outcome of the game? Because what I'm thinking is, as we run the clock down on the season and we go to 7 games, 6 games, and if it is a bit tight still, do you see nerves and stuff creeping into players? And could it happen with this current team?
I think, going back to our group, I feel like we had a group of really good characters. So I feel like we drove each other on, and especially towards the end of the season, those latter games, training, like our standards were there. You know, like we weren't dropping off at all. There wasn't, you know, any less intensity. If anything, we were at it even more because, you know, we were just pushing each other. And I think there were definitely games where we kind of not underperformed, but we weren't at our free-flowing best. You know, we probably weren't as expansive and as attacking. You know, I remember we went to a 5 at the back, and you know, me and Jamie Turley started playing at wing back. So we did sort of go a little bit defensive, if you like. It was just a case of we were kind of grinding out results. But in terms of like nerves, I don't think there was any nervousness. I think it was just like, you know, you were just ultra focused. You know, you were just kind of in your zone and yeah, you know, you don't want to let the team down, you don't want to let yourself down. You know, you're thinking those games are ticking by, and you're thinking of that last game of the season and you know, hopefully lifting a trophy and going up. And there's just so much on your mind, but it's just about trying to have a clear head and playing your own game. And like I said, just as the boys have done this season, they've been magnificent, you know, and they're in such a good position there. It's just about trying to keep as calm individually and collectively, I think, as possible.
Brilliant. Good stuff, good insight that. Today's game, before we head over to Matt and Dave, Victor, predictions. I know we all 8 predictions, but what are we thinking, Brendan? How do you see this going?
Ever the optimist. I think it's going to be an open game, but I think we're going to come out on top. I'll go 3-1 Orient.
3-1 away win, Joe?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, with this team, every time they've had a little setback or a little bit of adversity, you know, they come back and they respond so well. And I don't see it being any different today. I think it will be a comfortable 2-0. I think it will be a professional job, maybe a goal in each half. But, yeah, I can see us, you know, being solid at the back, hopefully, and, keeping a clean sheet and then getting a 2-0 win.
I would prefer them 2 goals in the first 5 minutes, if I'm honest. But right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll catch up at half-time, and let's head over to Dave, Victor and Matt Hiscock up in Hartlepool. Enjoy the game.
Welcome to Victoria Park. It's a great